Guys, go figure. Anytime we do something that places an emphasis on God's ancestrally chosen people, the Jews, we get attacked big time. Why? Because we support the Jews. Good morning. It's Monday morning. We have an exciting show power-packed for you. I cannot wait for us to get started. We need to do a couple of things together as usual. First and foremost, I ask this to everybody now. I would love for you to take all of the contacts on your phone. Yes, all of the contacts on your phone. And I'd like you to send an invitation out to everybody and let them know that we are live, okay? Especially if you're on YouTube, we want you to, as they say, smash the like button, right? And then we want you to take the link. We want you to send it to people. Thank you, by the way, so much for those of you that have been reporting this fake that has been asking for money. We reported him to YouTube. We continue to block new reports of people that are taking advantage of this situation. Just remember, we will never ask you for money directly. There are ways that you can always give. If you want to give during this show, in the live show, you can always use the super chat or the super sticker button. That's always available to you. You can also go to CalvaryChapelSignalHill.com. You can give there. Or what I prefer you do, especially while you're watching this show, is go to newantisemitism.com and look for ways to give there. We're going to talk about Olivier in just a minute because he is with me, yes, again, and we are in for a radically cool show. We are excited about what God is going to bring to the table through everything that you're going to watch. So I'm going right now to Facebook. And I am going live, and I'm basically going to share this. I'm going to share We're Live. I'm doing that right now. Please do that. I would appreciate you doing that. We're doing that right now. Here we go. We're live, and we're going to share this thing. Make sure you let people know we're live right now. Let them know. The more, the better. That's always going to be a very, very good thing. Let folks know we are excited about what is going on today. We've got lots of news to talk about. So without further ado, I'm going to switch it over to my absolutely dear brother, Olivier Melnick. I'm glad to see you here today, bro. We've got an exciting day. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, James. And, I wish you would get a little more excited when I come on your show.
Hey, it's exciting. It really is. It's exciting to serve you guys, or to be with you, bro, to serve our people here that are watching us. We want to give everybody the best that we can. And, man, I got to tell you, please don't tell this to Tom. He'll get mad. But you're one of my favorite guys to minister with, just all time, not just like online. I think all time. You're an amazing bro. You got my heart. And I just love you. I just think you do such a great job, and I'm just thankful to the Lord for you.
Tom who?
Woo! I'm gonna get busted for that one.
Our dear brother Tom Hughes, and he is a dear brother. But I'm really, and I've said it again, I'm really blessed to have connected with the two of you, because your heart for my people, your heart for the Jewish people, and your understanding of the Bible, which goes hand in hand, is such a blessing to me. And it's a rarity in today's age. It's a rarity to see pastors and church leaders that have such a passion and such a love for Israel and the Jewish people. So you bless. Every time I talk to you, it's a blessing.
Well, we are very, very blessed, and we're very, very excited that you're here, and we're just looking forward to what is going on and everything that's going on, so we're just very thankful for you. Let's talk about some things going on in the news, right? What are some of the things that have been happening in the news that have kind of got your attention? I know I want to talk about the ceasefire. I don't want to sound very negative, but we'll see how long that ceasefire holds. I think the way the ceasefire came about is a little ridiculous. But nonetheless, it still has come about, and it's a blessing. So let's talk about that for just a second, and maybe some other news items that you might have that we can actually touch base on.
Yeah, and by the way, I posted a video on my YouTube, and then you're always really kindly remind people to subscribe to my YouTube. So I posted a video on Friday on the connection between what's happening and the possibility of being setting the stage for Zechariah 12:3, where the whole world is turning against the Jews. So people might want to go there and watch that video at their leisure.
Yes, we most definitely have to go do that. I would love to see that video. I haven't seen the latest and greatest, but let me tell you what I would love to see more. For those of you guys that don't know this, I have a heart to see Olivier. Olivier, tell me right now, how many subscribers now do you have on your YouTube channel?
Well, it's a little embarrassing. I only have 1469.
1469, come on, guys. My goal was to see him get to 2,000 by last week. We got to do that. If you have not subscribed to Olivier's YouTube channel, you need to. Best book ever written on the subject of ministering to Jews. Right here, this is an incredible book. The time is now. I love this book, 7 Steps Christians Should Take to Help the Jewish People. It's an easy read. I would recommend that you get it. Also, Anti-Semitism. Get those books. Those are my favorite that he has done. I'm almost done with Anti-Semitism. He's done a great job, you guys, and these books are powerful. So you get a lot of great insight. You'll learn a lot. And very solidly biblically based stuff. So make sure you go there. Make sure you support Olivier. He's got a lot of great things going on. Let's talk, bro. What's going on? Let's talk about all this.
Well, like you said, the ceasefire. A ceasefire is always a good thing in and of itself. Okay, it stops the hostilities on both sides. It's supposed to, and so it's always a positive thing. But you're right. The way it came about is kind of iffy. We don't know if it's going to stick. The Palestinian Authority really, or Hamas, made it look like they had a complete victory. And I think we have to look at two sides of it. I think in reality, it was a complete failure for Hamas, as far as the infrastructure and the way they handle themselves. But in the media, it looks like a victory.
Yeah. Yeah, but go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm pretty certain from the articles I've read and the few people I've talked to that the ceasefire, the reason why Netanyahu agreed to the ceasefire that was brokered by Egypt, I think it has to do with the fact that they looked at what they had done on the ground and said, you know what, we've done enough based on what we wanted to do to stop Hamas, at least for a while, so we can stop now. So it looked like a ceasefire, but really it was Israel saying, you know what, we've done enough. Let's see how much time it takes them to rebuild, so to speak. And the unfortunate part is that we are in a new U.S. administration right now, and they're going to send money to the Palestinians. We already have, and so, of course, money to rebuild the infrastructure, to rebuild the buildings, and they help with the humanitarian aid. But that money doesn't go there, and it doesn't stop for the money being sent. But it doesn't go there. When is the world going to get a clue on the fact that we are financing a terrorist organization? It puzzles me. So that's one side. Did you want to say something?
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Olivier. Go ahead.
The other side that is very, very scary to me is the parallel hatred of the Jews. So we have Hamas, who they hate Israel. They're financed by Iran. They're financed by the U.S. really, because the U.S. sends money to the Palestinian Authority. In essence, U.S. taxpayers are paying for Hamas. If you really want to bring it down to the core problem here. But the other side is that every time there's been a conflict, like in 2014, the last big one, the Gaza war, or the Intifada of 2000, every time there's a conflict in Israel, globally, people start attacking the Jews on the street. And right now, it's continuing. We've seen it in New York, we've seen it in Los Angeles. There's been some defacing of synagogues in different states of the Union. There's been a lot of activity in Europe as well against the Jews. I just read an article that brought tears to my eyes on the weekend that said that Jews are not saying, do not go outside wearing a yarmulke, do not wear a Star of David around your neck. It's almost to the point where they have to take their mezuzah, the little scroll that is on the door of a Jewish home that they have one on the outside of my house. It's almost to the point where people are saying, take your mezuzah out. Don't show that you have a Jewish home. It's like Kristallnacht all over again. The night of broken glass. What's going on here?
Yeah, this is the big problem that we're seeing right now, and it's becoming worse and worse, and we're watching it happen very, very clearly. The problem is the growing rise in anti-Semitism is very much like the growing rise that we're beginning to see taking place with the evil individuals who seek to destroy white people because of the fact that they're white. It's the same kind of a situation, although if you take it with the Jewish people, it's that times 100. It's crazy. Jews get blamed for absolutely everything, and none of it is correct. As a matter of fact, I'm beginning to say this a lot more, Olivier, and I'm going to play this for you. And we played this already. You were with us, I think, when we played this before. I'm going to play it again because it's worthwhile playing. We should expose people to this. By the way, the man that you are about to watch is not only a former Hamas member, right? He is the son of one of the top lieutenants in Hamas. He's also a believer now in Christ. He started walking with the Lord, and the insight that he offers, albeit this is 2017, is remarkable. The insight that he offers here is powerful, and this is perhaps one of the best descriptions of what is going on with the Palestinian Authority and what happens with Hamas and all of these other organizations, that when we give to those organizations, they do nothing but destroy the lives of Palestinians. And let me just simply say this. I think it's very, very important that we understand this. It's critically important that we understand this. It's important that we understand the fact that if you love Palestinians, then you will support the Jews. I mean, that sounds crazy, but it's true. If you love the Palestinians, then you will support the Jews. Let's watch this, and you'll find out exactly why I say this. This is powerful. Take a listen to this. Olivier, I'd like you to react as soon as we're finished. We're going to go ahead and play this right now.
Shukran, Sayyid Rais. I take the floor on behalf of the UN Watch. My name is Mus'ab Hassan Youssef. I grew up in Ramallah as a member of Hamas. I address the words to the Palestinian Authority, which claims to be the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people. I ask, where does your legitimacy come from? The Palestinian people did not elect you, and they did not appoint you to represent them. You are self-appointed. Your accountability is not to your own people. This is evidenced by your own total violation for their human rights. In fact, the Palestinian individual and their human development is the least of your concerns. You kidnap Palestinian students from campus and torture them in your jails. You torture your political rivals. The suffering of the Palestinian people is the outcome of your selfish political interest. You are the greatest enemy of the Palestinian people. If Israel did not exist, you would have no one to blame. Take responsibility for the outcome of your own actions. You fan the flames of conflict to maintain your abusive power. Finally, you use this platform to mislead the international community, to mislead the Palestinian society, to believe that Israel is responsible for the problems you create. Thank you.
Wow.
Did you see how angry many of the Palestinian Authority people were?
Yes. Is this man still alive?
Oh, still alive and has a very powerful ministry. His location is not disclosed, but he's alive. He has a very powerful ministry where he reaches out to a lot of people, and he's changed a lot of minds, especially people who come from the Middle East. The man is a very powerful man. They want him dead. Let me make no mistake about it. If I understand the story correctly, I think his own family wants him dead. But what he's saying is absolutely true, isn't it?
Oh, it's not only it's true, but what really I saw that video the other day when you had the interview with Pastor Dunham, and I had seen it before because this is a very powerful short message. That what really gets me every time is the face of the Palestinian representative. They look at each other, going like, "What's going on here? Is he going to stop? Is he what? Can we stop him?" It's almost like a look of panic in their eyes.
Oh, absolutely.
And it says, that silence and that look on their face says it says so much more than what he is saying. They're going like, oh my gosh, he's exposing us. And you should, if you could, you should have him on your show.
That's one of the things that I want to try to do, to be honest with you. It's I definitely want to get him there because I just think that what this guy has to say is so powerful. And I think that so much of his insight is definitely worth highlighting to folks. You know, I mean, this is a guy who really, truly gets it. He understands it, but that's because he's been exposed to it, right? And that's the thing. He knows. He has spent so much time on this. And I also thought it would be worthwhile, and I don't know if you saw this video or not, but I thought it would be worthwhile to talk about some of the lengths that Israel goes to protect its citizens, right? I want to play two videos. I want to play one that talks about the Iron Dome system and why they do what they do. The IDF released this a while ago. And then I also want to play something about the underground tunnels that are going on. And again, you know, we're talking about the news here, so I want people to understand what's really taking place, that Israel is going out of their way to protect their neighbors while still shooting trying to shoot their own missiles in the air to destroy the 5,000 plus rockets that have been launched by Hamas. It's very interesting. Now, some of the information in this video is pretty powerful. It's extraordinary. So I want you guys to pay attention to this. Pretty amazing. The IDF released this. Let's take a watch on this one as well.
This is the Iron Dome, the world's very first combat-proven defense system for intercepting rockets launched by nearby enemies. A keystone of the Israeli Air Force's defense capabilities, the Iron Dome and the soldiers who operate it have prevented thousands of rockets from hitting Israeli civilians since its debut in 2011. So how does it work? When a terrorist fires a rocket at Israel, the Iron Dome's radar detects it instantly, tracks its path, and a team of soldiers in the operations room launches a missile of their own to intercept it mid-air, where the terrorist rocket explodes on impact high above civilians on the ground. Every Iron Dome operates day and night under any weather conditions against both short and medium-range rockets and can respond to multiple threats simultaneously. That's right, there are several Iron Domes operating around Israel right now. The Iron Dome is extremely mobile and is regularly moved all over Israel. It is even fitted to work from the Israeli Navy's warships at sea. The Iron Dome is highly advanced, setting the bar high for all other aerial defense array systems that were built since, and the soldiers who operate it are ready at all times to defend Israel's skies and keep the people of Israel safe.
I want you to notice that they say that it's to keep the people of Israel safe. It's not saying to keep the Jews safe. It's the people of Israel. That means the IDF is just as interested, if not more in many cases, of protecting Palestinian lives as they are Jewish lives. And the selection of such terminology is very calculated. The IDF was very careful to make sure that those things were actually said, because it's remarkable. I mean, you look at the great lengths that they go through to protect civilian life. And I want to show this to you too, because this is also a remarkable video, and this goes to show how little regard the Hamas has for its people. It's very, very sad, or for the people it claims to represent. But go ahead, Olivier. Go ahead. What you were going to say,
James?
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
I want, before you show the other video, you know, I was watching this video and I was writing down the words that they use. It's funny you mentioned that, and defensive, interception, prevention. Some people on the other side that are trying to demonize and ostracize Israel for defending herself saying that, you know, the Iron Dome is a weapon. It is not a weapon. I mean, in and of itself, it's an apparatus for war, but it is defensive. It's interception. It is prevention. It is something that will only be triggered if something is sent at it for destruction. It doesn't shoot anything in the middle of nowhere for no reason. And people need to understand this. This is purely 100% defense. This is not an offensive apparatus.
That's 100% correct.
You know, when people say they shouldn't use the Iron Dome, they're basically saying, listen, you should not defend yourself. How crazy is that?
Yeah, it's absolutely insane, and it makes no sense. And you want to talk about Hamas doing things that are extraordinarily dangerous? Let's watch this. This will blow your mind, okay? Let's take a look at this, and this will make you sick when you see it. Watch this. Now, this is very significant because we have to understand the fact that these tunnels have been used, as you say, to smuggle weapons. And in doing so, those weapons explode oftentimes in those tunnels, taking lots of civilian casualties with them because of the people that live above them. What say you about this one?
Well, the tunnels have been a big issue because they've been used for several different things. They would use them to smuggle people inside Israel too, and then do terrorist attacks. Like even those lone wolves terrorists. By the way, I don't know if you know, either today or last night or yesterday, there was a young Arab teenager that in the middle of Jerusalem that went after a soldier and stabbed him in the back. And it just came out like a couple hours ago, and like a 17-year-old kid just went after a soldier that was just like doing his job on the streets of Jerusalem and stabbed him in the back. So we even seeing this in Israel, which means that they're gonna have to probably double up their efforts of like it's becoming very hot all over the world, but even in Israel right now. And they use some of those tunnels to bring people in. They use the way they network them now. It could be very dangerous. But recently, of course, what happened with the last few days is that Israel has been I don't know if you've seen some of those videos of the streets collapsing because of their destruction of the tunnel. So it's good that those are destroyed. It's gonna set them back. But how quickly is the world gonna, the friends of Hamas, which unfortunately our government is, how quickly are they going to replenish their coffers so that they can rebuild the expense of taking care of their own people?
Well, and this is the problem we're having right now, right? I mean, this is the problem. But let me do this. I want to show you an update just released, by the way, by the IDF that kind of gives you an idea of what's happened and what's gone on and the stats behind here, because this is truly staggering, right? This is mind-boggling, and I'm showing this to you so that you'll actually see this. So we know this from the IDF, right? We know that 4,360 plus rockets have been fired at Israel. 90% of them have been intercepted by the Iron Dome, right? Now listen to this. This is disgusting. 13 people have been killed in Israel, right? But 680 Hamas targets misfired in Gaza. That means 680 of the missiles that they fired were actually destroyed the lives of those in Gaza. 1,500 plus terror targets were struck in Gaza. 675 rockets that had launching, or 675 rocket launching capabilities were damaged, and 200 plus terrorists were neutralized. But here's the one that's significant. They've destroyed already 60 plus miles of Hamas terror tunnel networks. Now, I want to just say this because it is important to bring this out, and it's staggering when you look at the numbers, right? It's just very scary. Like, to me, I think, oh my goodness, if you were to take the cost for 1 mile, this gives you a good perspective, right? If you were to take the cost of building 1 mile worth of this terror tunnel, if Hamas took that money, they could feed 8,000, this is not an exaggeration, 8,000 Palestinian families with $160 worth of food. 8,000 families, okay, with $160 worth of food. If you were to take 2 miles, the cost that it takes for 2 miles, right? you could literally pay for electricity for all of the areas covered by Gaza and the Palestinian Authority for 2 weeks. If you were to take the cost for 12 miles, you could give every single Palestinian in Israel, every single Palestinian that's in Israel, every single Arab, water for a month. It costs $800,000 for Hamas to build 1 mile worth of these tunnels. And you know where all that money's coming from? That money is coming from the United States. That money is coming from Iran. That money is coming from Qatar. Qatar's a big one, right? They're a huge, massive state terrorist sponsor. They might even be bigger than Iran as it relates to Hamas. But it's unbelievable. And yet we continue to allow this nonsense to happen, and they're doing it in the name of free the Palestinians, help the Palestinians. But just like Black Lives Matter, when we give them what they want, they make lives more miserable for black people.
That's
just
right.
like when you give Hamas the money, they make lives far more miserable for Palestinians.
Well, just compare, okay, without getting too political. Let's compare what happened in the last 4 years, the prior administration, and when funding to Palestinians were basically cut, and as soon as it resumed under the new administration, let's compare what happened. It was not 100% quiet, but it was very quiet in the last 4 years.
And by the way, not just quiet because they were oppressed, quiet because they were blessed. I mean, the West Bank grew. Financially speaking, the GDP in the West Bank and even Gaza in some respects grew while a lot of that happened. If I don't have the money to be able to do all the terror things that I want to do, then what else? This is just crazy. This is where else is it going to go? It's not going to go to funding terrorists. If terrorists don't have the funding to do what they want to do, then they're not going to destroy the lives of all of these Palestinians. And let me just say this again. You saw the statistic. 13 people are killed in Israel, okay? That's a much smaller number than the amount of Palestinians that were killed, and almost every Palestinian that was killed, a majority of them, were not killed by Israelis. They were killed by the misfirings of these rockets in Gaza.
Yeah, they don't care about their people. You know, they have one people that protects that uses defensive apparatus to protect their people, that's Israel, and you have the other side who uses their people to hide their weapons. There is a complete disconnect. There's no moral equivalence.
100%. I agree with you 100%.
And how the world is just, today, again, it came from Europe, from I think the European Union, made a statement that if Israel continues what they're doing, they're on the way to become a complete apartheid state. Do they even understand what apartheid is all about? I mean, people are using this word like a magic, they they're like a magic wand. Like, okay, you're bad, you're apartheid. I went on one of our tours to Israel. One of the ladies with us fell, and I had to take her to Hadassah Hospital in the center of Jerusalem, the biggest hospital, really good hospital. Our triage nurse was a Palestinian woman, the whole hijab and everything. She was, you can only see her eyes. She was a triage nurse. You think if she wanted to kill Jews, she had a good spot?
Yeah, you think? You think?
She was the nicest woman. She took care of us. So, I mean, Palestinians, if they would only give a chance to Israel to see how they would be treated if they would come, those who say negative things, they would not go back to the West Bank. They would not go back to Gaza. They would say, like, I want to be in Israel. I want to have a life. Like you said,
well,
if you love the Palestinians.
I told you this, Olivier. I didn't mean to cut you off. I've said this before. I had a conversation. We hosted 2 pastors at our church. We did an interview with them at our church. These are pastors from the West Bank. One from Beit Laham and the other one from Ramla, right? These are 2 well-known guys, sweet as could be. I got them both to admit that their greatest frustration in pastoring their churches is that when guys get saved, they go out, they reach out to Palestinians, they get saved. When they come to know the Lord, they immediately want to go over to Israeli territory because they want the better life. And he admitted that that's their greatest frustration in their church.
That's interesting. Well, what does that tell you? That tells you that, that we are the world. I mean, you and I, and we know that those are lies, but the world is buying a bunch of lies. We need to remind our audience that the only reason the world is buying this is because Satan is behind it.
Amen to that.
And then, you might hear me say this every single show, every single week, but we have to understand the spiritual battle that we're in.
Amen to that.
It is a spiritual battle. We're fighting the enemy. The enemy has been defeated at the cross, but we're fighting it because right now he's out on bail, but not for much longer.
He's out on bail. I love that term.
Well, that's what it is. He's out on bail, but he's gonna, it's gonna catch up with him because we know the end of the story. And now there's one more thing I wanted to tell you about it, because I don't know if you know that or not. I found out this morning. And by the way, we had planned to do a little bit of Messianic prophecies today. We might not have time to do that today.
Oh no, we're going to do it. People have been looking forward to it, Olivier. We're going to spend some time, even if we have to go over and the show goes a little longer. We're going to definitely do it.
Okay. By the way, I will be posting every single Messianic prophecy as an episode on my YouTube channel. So people definitely, if they want to get the more details about my Messianic prophecy class, about 20 to 30 different videos every week, I'm going to post one parallel to what we do, you and I. So they definitely want to subscribe.
Excellent.
To
That's
get
what
those.
We want. Yep. We want
okay.
That.
So I don't know if you heard that. Did you hear about the latest censoring on Facebook that took place? There is a channel, I forgot what the name of it. I think it's Israel Prayer Network or something. His last name is Evans. He's a Christian pastor. I know him, but I forgot his last name for a second. He has a Facebook channel that prays for Israel. Okay, a Facebook page that prays for Israel, that he maintains with his son. Tells the truth about what's going on in Israel in a very, very in a good way. It's not character assassination. It doesn't do anything any worse than what you and I would do, but it also is focusing on praying for the safety of Israel. That Facebook channel page has, ready for this, James, 77 million people. It was canceled out of Facebook today. At the same time, they closed it. Facebook closed it because it was infringing on their community rules, and they're trying to figure out why. At the same time, in the last 10 days, there's been over 17,000 postings on Facebook saying that Hitler was right.
Goodness gracious!
And those are all over, and they're not being punished. I don't have an answer for this.
That is such a hard thing for me to fathom.
I don't have an answer for this, except that this is really, really getting worse, and it's wake up, Christians, wake up. It's not getting any better.
I don't even get this. I just, my goodness, what is
17,000 sightings of statements like Hitler was right, kill the Jews, take them to the ovens. And
did Facebook say what their reason was for doing that? Did they give any kind of statement as into what it was, what the reasoning was, anything like that? Do we have any idea from them?
For the guy the channel that was closed?
Yes.
They simply said, the guy reporting said, we're talking to them right now. They said that we infringed the community online community policy. The canned message you get when you do something wrong on Facebook.
Goodness gracious.
So, I mean, they might be, I mean, they've got a lot of pull. I'm sure they've got a lot of money from advertising. They might be reinstated, but the fact that they would be stopped for being a channel that prays for Israel, it blows my mind. 77 million people. And what's interesting is, in reading the article, it said that the guy has, I don't know if it was 12 million or 18 million Muslims who subscribe to that channel.
Muslims that are subscribing to the channel that's praying for Israel? Really?
He said, yeah, I'll send you the article, James. It's amazing. It's amazing.
That is incredible to me.
Yep.
Goodness gracious. Goodness gracious.
So it keeps getting worse. It keeps getting, it keeps. I don't know how far it's going to go, except that the only thing I can think of right now, and I think that maybe that's something that you and I and Tom might be talking about in a couple of days, is that Christians really need to wake up and we need to start making a difference. We can't just talk about it and just, we can pray, which is always the foundation of everything, no question about it. But Christians need to wake up. Christianity in America is about to change.
Yeah, I think it's already changing on a bunch of levels. I'm going to do a video later today, my daily video on Tim Keller, who I think is a complete racist. And I'm beginning to feel that way because the statements that he makes are just absolutely horrible. He thinks that the reason why, in essence, that the church is not doing well is because of the white people in the church. And it's a horrible statement. I'm going to play that video for people so they can see it coming out of his own mouth. It's really, really sad. And the church is changing. And the reason why the church is changing is because they're capitulating to the woke industrial complex. They're capitulating to the nonsense. And they're not really thinking about the things that are important. And perhaps the most important thing to be thinking about, especially in this current time, in this day, besides worshiping the Lord, putting Christ first, making him, our everything, is the support of Israel. And people are ignoring that. And they're ignoring it from moves like Black Lives Matter and all this other nonsense that's going on. It's very sad, but it's the reality, and it's heartbreaking.
I tell you what, the critical race theory, I look at it this way. We are the human race. We are fallen. We are sinners, and it's critical for us to come to Jesus. That's the critical.
Hey, that's a great. I love it. I love that redefinition there because it is so critically important that we understand it for what it is. It's absolutely crazy. So, man, we just got to pray, right? We've got to pray for all of these things that are around the corner because it's just getting worse and worse, and the days are getting darker, and we just need to ask God to continue to get a hold of the lives and the hearts of all of these people, especially the Jews. They're the ones that brought to us the law of God. They're the ones that brought to us the gospel. They're the ones that brought to us, these things. And in reality, what we've done is we've just turned it around, and we've really, truly done the exact opposite of what God's heart would be. And the church has become a group of people that really, and you know what, actually, I'm going to just simply say this: separate the sheep from the goats, right? Here's the reality of it. If you're a part of the real church, you're going to love and support the Jews. I really believe that, right? Now, don't get me wrong. There are members of the church today that don't support the Jews or hate the Jews because they've been taught incorrectly and they don't know any better, right? And we've got to understand that these are legitimate members of Christ's body that just feel the way that they feel because they've never been taught any different. And I think that those pastors are the ones that are going to get the worst of it. I think God's going to judge them harder than anybody else because they've taken advantage of this disgusting reality of hatred for Jews being propagated by spiritual leaders. And truth be told, God's got something very special for them in terms of judgment. And it's sad, but it's the reality of it. And it's a big responsibility we have as spiritual leaders. And we've got to tell the truth. We've got to tell people exactly what the Word of God actually says.
Yeah, but I think what we have to remember, James, is that those who hate the Jews within the body of Messiah because they've been misinformed or taught the wrong way or got the wrong theological perspective, they can be corrected. It's those who cannot be corrected that we just have to leave in God's hands and say, you know what, I tried. But many of them can be corrected. And this is exactly why people like you and Tom and I do what we do, to expose our audiences to the truth of what's going on in the world, to the biblical truth, and to guide people into a proper understanding of the Bible, which, of course, like you said, like I've said, when you really properly understand the Bible, your view of Israel, the view of the Jewish people is pretty simple. You're going to love it.
That's right. Amen.
Now, that doesn't mean that we blindly accept. I had a conversation with somebody over the weekend who said, I have a problem with blindly accepting everything that Israel does, everything that Jewish people do. And I said, well, me too. I don't blindly accept. I recognize the place of Israel and the place of the Jewish people in God's plan for mankind. He has a specific purpose for Israel and the Jewish people. But that doesn't mean that that every move that is made by Israel government or by even Jewish people all over the world, I'm going to agree with. Of course not.
Amen.
But
Amen.
but we have to understand. We have to understand that, you know, if it's in God's plan that he has he has everything revolves around Israel and the Jewish people. You know, who are we to argue?
Yeah, and I think that one of the biggest problems that we have right now is, again, and it goes back to it. It's one of the things that you put in this book right here. I think it's the first thing. We are not looking at the Bible correctly. The Bible's not being taught correctly. We're not studying it correctly, and that's why we're coming to the erroneous conclusions that we're coming to. And oftentimes those erroneous conclusions transform into nefarious actions, and we've got to be very careful about this. So a lot of stuff going on. So let's do this. We promised everybody, we gave them our word that we were going to start doing a section in the show where you talk about prophecies, certain prophecies that relate to the Messiah, and we're starting in Genesis today, correct?
Well, why not start with the beginning?
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm going to switch over to you, and I'm going to let you take control and give us an education, bro. Let's talk about this.
Well, excuse me. I do this study where I look at the Messianic prophecies, the prophecies speaking of the coming Redeemer, the coming Savior, the Mashiach, in the Old Testament, in the Jewish Bible. And what Christians need to understand, most of you listening probably already know that, is that the Old Testament is the Jewish Bible in different orders. The books are in different orders. Chronicles, Kings, and Samuel are usually one book in a Jewish Bible as opposed to two in the Christian Bible, but they're the same books, different orders. The last book of the Jewish Bible is Chronicles, but they're all there. They're all there the same way. What I find amazing is that when you start studying the Old Testament, the Tanakh, as we call it, in the order of the Jewish Bible, you get you build upon each prophecy. The other day I used the word progressive, but I don't like to use that word so much because it's gotten a different definition now. The etymology has changed, but you get a progressive image. You get more and more in focus on the image of one person fulfilling all the prophecies of the Old Testament. And by the end, there's no question that it has to be Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah. Now, the first one we get, and of course, you're going to get a lot more details on the one I'm going to place on my YouTube channel, but we're just going to do an overview here. The first one we get is in Genesis. And James, here's something that I love, and I know you know that. Genesis has 50 chapters, okay? It's a lot of chapters for a book. 50 chapters, first book of the Bible. The first 11 chapters speak of mankind in general. As a matter of fact, the first 3 chapters speak of creation. The first 2 chapters, speak of creation. Then the next 9 chapters speak of mankind in general. And then from chapter 12 to chapter 50, 39 chapters on the Jewish people. What does that tell you about God setting the stage for telling people, pay attention to my people? 11 chapters on mankind, 39 on the Jewish people.
It's amazing. I mean, it's astounding when you think about it. It's astounding. And it's interesting because later on, when you go into the book of Hebrews, a lot of the arguments that Paul makes is based on the things that we find in Genesis, referring to the superiority of the Messiah for everything as it relates to the Jew first, then all of mankind. It's a pretty powerful piece of insight. So let's get into it.
So basically, the Genesis 3:15 I'm not going to read the whole passage, but the passage that you would need to read is Genesis 3:1 through 15, and at the end of the passage of this, basically it's the fall. It's the explanation of what happens when man and woman ate the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And at the end, they were tempted by the serpent. And at the end, we read, "And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise you on the head, and you shall bruise him on the heel." So a lot of people call this the proto-evangelium, or the first gospel, because it's the first occurrence of a proclamation of a promise of a redeemer from God to mankind. And it's just a glimpse, but nevertheless, it sets the stage for the coming redeemer. And there's three characters in this scene: the serpent, the man, and the woman. And I don't know what you think, James. People have come up with a lot of explanation for the serpent, because people don't like to take the Bible literally. And to be honest with you, it's not so important what the serpent is at the time of the temptation of Adam and Eve. But what's important is the fact that he did tempt them and told them, don't worry, if you do this, you'll be like God. So, but the serpent in Revelation 12, in Revelation 20, and in Romans 16, we read the serpent of old, who is called the devil and Satan. The serpent of old, who is the devil, and in Romans 16, and the God of peace will soon crush Satan under your feet. So we have this concept of the serpent, which is connected to Satan. And so some people say it was a serpent, and Satan took the shape of a serpent. Some people say it's a serpent that that had legs before. I don't think it's that important. What's important is the fact that he made the man and the woman commit the first sin, and that even though I think the identity of the serpent can be established as being Satan, we see this crushing and this bruising and the enmity between the two. And there is also in you can look in rabbinic sources, other rabbinic, and when I say rabbinic sources, I always want to be careful. They are not inspired as we look at the Bible being inspired, but there's a lot of wisdom, a lot of history, a lot of things we can learn from rabbinic sources in the commentaries and the Talmud. And basically, in the Talmud, the serpent is identified as Satan. So from the very beginning, we have Satan, who is trying to derail the Messianic line. From the third chapter of Genesis, he's trying to derail. He's going to try to derail the Messianic line all throughout. He's going to try to derail it or stop it or corrupt it, whatever, so that the first coming will not happen. Well, guess what? We're on the other side of the first coming. So now what is he doing? So what is he doing now? The first coming has happened. He's been defeated. Like I told you, he's out on bail. But now he's trying everything he can to stop the second coming, because the second coming is Act 2 in the play about Yeshua. And at the end of Act 2, Satan is done. He's toast. And he's going to be toast for eternity, because he's going to be in a lake of fire. That was a bad pun.
But this is so insightful what you're talking about, and I kind of, before you go too much further, I do want to stop and interject with something, because you asked what I thought, and I want to say this. When people attack what the Bible literally says about the identity of Satan, especially when he goes to tempt and does the evil that he does, it sets them up to be able to do this in the future with other issues, right? So you're right in making an emphasis on who the serpent is and what he actually did. It is definitely Satan. We know that. We get insight of it. And keep in mind, when you read something like the book of Revelation is simply, in essence, the revealing of the things that we already know in the Old Testament. I mean, that's really what it is. It's if you're well versed in the Old Testament, you read the book of Revelation, you're going to be like, whoa, this is really familiar to me. And so that's kind of an important thing. But as you say, what you're talking about here is super, super important. And we've got to we have to really establish the understanding that the Bible makes it clear. There's no question about who we're talking about here when we talk about the serpent.
And one more thing that you have to go a little bit in the Hebrew to find out, the word enmity, enmity between your seed and her seed, and the word enmity, which is eba in Hebrew, it's used another 5 times in the Old Testament. It always indicates person to person enmity. It never indicates person to animal. It's always enmity between 2 human beings or 2 people. And you find that in Numbers 35, Deuteronomy 4, Ezekiel 25, Ezekiel 35. And I have all those on my YouTube channel in detail. But so the enmity is really between Satan and the seed of the woman, and we'll find out later as this develops. The seed of the woman is going to be Messiah. We don't know anything about it yet. What we get from that prophecy, the proto-evangelium, the first gospel, we get very little. We get that this person is going to be a human being. This person, and so it's coming from the human race, and that's it. We also get that for some reason there's no father being described there. It's just the seed of the woman. And biblically speaking, genealogies in the Bible, it's always son of, and it's always the father, unless the father is not in the picture. And I'm not saying this in a bad, negative way, but in the case of Yeshua, Jesus, the father was not in the picture of his birth because there was a virgin conception and he was born without a biological father. And where do we know that? We'll get to that prophecy later on. It's a great one. It's Isaiah 7:14. The virgin, we call the virgin birth, the virgin conception. So we get a hint. In 3:15, we get a hint at the virgin conception because there's no father that is presented in that prophecy. Later on, it will get more detail about that when we get to Isaiah 7:14. Another thing that people need to understand when they look at Genesis 3:15 is what takes place right after the end of chapter 3, verse 1 or 2. I believe it's verse 1 of Genesis 4. It says, "Now the man had relations with his wife Eve, and she conceived and gave birth to Cain. And she said, I have gotten a man child with the help of the Lord." In the Hebrew, you don't have all those words. The Hebrew text does not include "with the help of." So when Eve is having a child, she is basically, what she said is, "I have gotten a man, the Lord." She thought she was giving birth to the Redeemer.
That's interesting.
But so she had the right theology, but the wrong timing, because Cain was no Redeemer.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
We know that.
Yeah,
so,
that's interesting.
So
as you're saying this, I'm so astounded by it that I'm actually looking at the original language, and you're 100% right. It's very interesting how that reads, and it can't even be inferred that way. How the translators did that, I'm a little astounded by it. And it's funny, I just finished, or I'm getting ready to finish teaching through Genesis, and I never caught that. That's pretty insightful.
Yeah, that is something that I have to tell you, a lot of those things I've learned with my years spent studying with Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum.
Yeah, and like one of the greatest of the great. Yeah, right.
So when you study with this guy, you end up with great knowledge that is insight that you don't get from a lot of other people. I'm very, very, very grateful for what I've learned. But so Eve had the right theology. There is a Redeemer that's going to come from mankind. He's going to be the God-man, and we'll learn about that in another prophecy in Isaiah 9, 6, and 7. But I'm setting the stage for many other prophecies. So we're going to be together for many, many weeks, my friend.
Bro, what do you mean many, many weeks? Many, many years, Lord willing, if he doesn't come back sooner. You know what I mean?
Come back, that's right.
I mean, we're going to be, this is a long haul thing. We're going to be doing this on a regular basis. This is, you got to understand, the people are blessed by this. I'm blessed by it. We're all learning. It's good. And I love the dynamic of us. I've been wanting to, and I told you this, I've been wanting to for a very, very long time, focus on the subject of anti-Semitism, focus on giving people correct teaching with respect to this. This has been one of my problems, okay? And I'll just, we can talk about this. Maybe this is a philosophical thing. I don't know. I think it relates to just solid truth. One of my biggest problems with some of my Jewish brothers and sisters that are Messianic and are on the speaking circuit, for lack of a better term, they're talking about all these things that are going on in Israel and so on and so forth, is it almost seems as though the purpose of what they're doing seems to be somewhat capitalistic. And we're not talking about the things that are the most important. Now, I don't think that that's capitalistic because all these people are just pure money hungerers and all that kind of a thing. I just think that there is an ignorance of scriptural mandates And as a result of that ignorance, they're not teaching as it should be. And by the way, this isn't just my Jewish brothers and sisters, right? This is lots of people. This isn't just one person. But my whole idea has always been, my whole desire has always been to emphasize a very targeted attack on anti-Semitism and start to really speak about the Messiah from a solid biblical perspective by people who really not only love the Lord, because most of these guys, hey, they love the Lord, but who really love his word and are dedicated to good, solid teaching and not sensationalistic teaching, right? So I think we're doing that. I think we're meeting that goal by doing what we're doing together. There's a lot of great teaching here. And I mean, just that little tidbit right there that you talked about with Eve and her assessment of what was going on when she gave birth to Cain. What a great insight, right? And it's interesting because it doesn't take a lot of research to see it. As you're telling me this, I'm looking it up and I'm realizing, my goodness, why on God's green earth did I not see it? Like, what? What kept me?
Well, because, I to be honest with you, James, I didn't see it before. When I look at the Bible in English, and we lose a lot when we, that's why
true.
I tell people all the time, when you study the scriptures from a Jewish perspective, which is what everything I do, everything I post on my channel, it's from a Jewish perspective. When you look at the scripture from a Jewish perspective, this is my analogy. We've been reading our Bible in black and white our whole life. And when you look at the Jewish perspective, you start looking at scriptures in color and in HD. It's the same story, but you get more details. That's all. And so that's what we need to do. We need to start looking at the Jewish perspective. It doesn't mean you have to keep kosher. It doesn't mean you have to wear a yarmulke. It doesn't mean you have to go to synagogue. It simply means you have to read scripture in its context.
Well,
written by Jews, for Jews,
And this is why understanding the Jewish perspective gives tremendous insight into the scripture. Because if you're going to do good biblical interpretation, you need to understand the Jewish perspective, because those are the people who wrote this, right? The Lord himself inspired his people. And when his people wrote it, if you don't understand the culture, if you don't understand the background, you're not going to understand the things that are being communicated, right? We used certain terms that have been developed in our culture that if you don't understand the culture, you're not going to be able to really get it. And we have lots of problems that come from original language and culture. You have many problems. The first of the problems is you're using a language that in many ways is very dead, right? It's not a language that's being used by everybody. I mean, even biblical Hebrew is very different in many ways than the modern Hebrew that we speak today on a bunch of levels. But the other thing that people don't understand are the cultural implications of it all, right? And then you have a time gap issue. And those are three major things that people don't really completely understand. The best way I can illustrate this with the English language is if you were alive in the 1600s and you were listening to people speak English, you would not understand virtually any of the things that were being communicated back and forth, because the way English was spoken back then was very different, right? Now, you hit the fast forward button and you get to the 1980s. Well, the language that you hear spoken in the 1980s is going to be very similar to the language that you hear today. But there are certain terms associated with popular culture that you would never understand, right? So, for example, if I went back to the 80s and I said, hey, the president tweeted this, right? Nobody in the 80s would understand a word of what was just said, because the understanding here of what we're talking about is something that didn't even exist back in the 1980s, right? I can go to another neighborhood and I can say, hey, what's cracking? And, in some neighborhoods that means, hey, how are you doing? In other neighborhoods, you're asking if something is literally cracking, right? This is the problem that we have with time, with language, and with culture as it relates to biblical interpretation. And
it changes.
And understanding the Hebrew perspective manages to fix the time issue oftentimes and manages to fix the culture issue, right? And then the language issue tends to fall in place when you take the time to be very careful about that which you're reading. And these are all very important aspects that oftentimes are not discussed by good Bible teachers. They don't talk about any of these things, and they make major mistakes in their communication. And that's why what we're doing right here is so critically important, because people will understand it better from the language perspective, they'll understand it from the cultural perspective, and of course they're going to understand it from the time gap perspective. That's what happens when we do what we do, and that's why this is so important.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's right. The meaning of words change. Okay, you made the word that always comes to me when I try to explain people. This is probably not the people's favorite word to handle, but it's a very good example. The word gay.
Yeah.
100 years ago, if you say I'm very gay, you meant you were super happy, you were joyful, and then it became the meaning of being an homosexual. And then even today, young people say that is so gay. They don't mean homosexual. They don't mean happy. They mean something different.
Silly.
And so,
typically.
right. So the same word is completely changing over a period of maybe 100 years. So, and we can, there's many examples like this, but looking at Messianic prophecy, I think looking forward, what we're going to try to do here, James, is when I teach Messianic prophecy, I tell people it's going to hopefully accomplish several things. First of all, it's going to help you understand the Bible better. It's going to help you understand the Jewish people better, because we're going to study it from a Jewish perspective. And every time we do it, I'm going to bring out any chance I have. I'm going to bring out what Jewish people think of it and how we relate to it as believers, and why they think what they think. And so that's also helpful. But then it's also going to it's going to strengthen your faith. Why do I say that? Because every time you get more clues about how God put his program together and how this one person became the Messiah with no mistake on any of the prophecies and all the promises he made based on the covenants, and it's all happening the way he said, then the promises he made to us for our own personal relationship with him are standing on the same, it's with the same God and the same character. So every time you see it, Israel, even looking at what's happening today, going back to the topic that we discussed before, what's happening against Israel, against the Jewish people, we see how God is protecting Israel. And if you really don't believe in God, or if you're a believer and you're struggling, thinking maybe God is not real in my life, just look at Israel. The promises he made to Israel and how he's keeping them, he's keeping his promises with you too. So looking at the Messianic prophecies that strengthen your faith, because it shows you how detailed and how structured and how faithful to his promise God is when it comes to Israel and when it comes to us and it comes to the Messiah. So I'm looking forward to doing this, because every time I've done it with people, as a matter of fact, again, this is probably a mistake I'm making, but tonight I'm starting the first in my series as a Zoom teaching. So anybody who wants to jump in that class, they can. They just have to go to my Facebook page, Olivier Melnick, and then send me a direct message with an email, and I'll put him on the list.
Guys, so if you can hear that one more time, go to his Facebook page, Olivier Melnick. By the way, we have a lot of people who have been asking us, how do we get a hold of Olivier's Facebook and how do we get a hold of the YouTube? It is in the show notes here. For those of you, go to YouTube, even if you're watching on Facebook or anywhere else, go to YouTube, go to this video, right? This video is called, the title of this video is More on Israel, Israel Matters Live. You'll be able to see this right away. Just type in Olivier Melnick and James Kaddis. You'll see it, or go to Calvary Chapel Signal Hills YouTube channel, and you'll find this video. You open up the video, and in the description, we have all of the information. As a matter of fact, I think every video that I've done with Olivier in the last 3 or 4 weeks has all of his information, where you could click there and you can grab it. The Zoom teaching, I'm telling you guys, it's going to be world class. It's going to be great. You're not going to want to miss out on it. Olivier, by the way, is coming at the end of June to our church, and we're super excited about that. He's not only going to be teaching at Tom's conference in Huntington Beach, but then he's going to be moving over to our house, or our church, and ministering to us there. It's going to be a phenomenal day. It's going to be a great day, and we're really looking forward to it. And I haven't even talked to you about this, but maybe what we can do for Sunday night, if you're available, we'll do all 3 services Sunday morning, and then Sunday night, if you're available, Olivier, maybe we can do a live show together, and we'll just do it from the sanctuary. I don't know if you're free to do that or not. If you, I haven't talked to you. Maybe you're teaching at the conference in that evening.
Let me pray about it. Okay.
Yeah, so it's going to be great. It's going to be an action-packed day. We're going to learn so much. you guys are just going to be completely blessed, and it's a good thing. So, Olivier, we are running a bit out of time. We are probably now at about the hour 20-minute mark. What do you have to say, bro? Any other final statements? I think that was just a great insight. There's already lots of people that are asking for your future teachings on all of this stuff. You can go to YouTube. Olivier Melnick is there.
They can go to my YouTube. They need to subscribe. I want to see 2,000 before the end of the week. So
I want to see 2,000 before the end of the day. Listen, there's no reason why we can't see 2,000 before the end of the day. Let's get there. Let's bless our brother. Let's do it. Let's support him. I don't know if you guys know this, but one of the best ways that you can support him is just by watching him, right? You guys, it's a tremendous thing how that works. You simply watch him, and that's how you can support him. And he works very hard. He does great videos, very insightful. You guys are going to want to watch it. And listen, I mean, it's exciting stuff. It's exciting to listen to the teaching. It's exciting to grow from it as a result. And the more you look forward to and learn more about what God has in store for you in the future, the more exciting things become. It's just an encouraging thing. So get plugged in and get all of his information.
And then next week, we'll be looking at Genesis. Let's see, which one do I have for next week? I don't know. Next week, we'll look at probably Genesis 49:10, which is a great prophecy.
The scepter shall not depart from Judah until Shiloh comes.
Yes.
That's a great one.
We're not gonna be looking at all the prophecies, but I'm gonna point you to the big ones.
Woo!
And
that's one of my favorite.
The Genesis 49:10. There's a few things that I see in it that actually are not really mentioned by a lot of people, but are really, really exciting. So we want to talk about Genesis 49:10 next week, and then we'll still be in the Torah for a few weeks because we'll look at Deuteronomy, we'll look at Numbers. So we're gonna have a lot of fun. This is great. I'm loving it.
And 49:10 is spectacular because it's interesting because when you look at the time that Jesus was born, Israel really felt forsaken more than ever before, because when their ability to be able to execute capital punishment was taken away, they really thought that this was a failure of this prophecy. And they didn't realize that the scepter departed from Judah, but Shiloh came.
That's right.
It's so beautiful.
That's right. And it's so that little prophecy doesn't look like much, and then you pass over it when you do your devotion in the morning, whatever. But then when you park on this thing a little bit, and then you go like, okay, let's just dissect the words and what it means, and there's a couple of beautiful little nuggets of truth in there that we don't want to miss.
Oh my goodness, not little, brother, big. That's great. I can't wait to hear that teaching. That's going to be a very, very good one, and that'll be on the heels of in essence what I cover. So that'll be great. I'm either going to do that. I'm actually going to teach through that passage on Sunday, this upcoming Sunday, or the Sunday following. That's pretty exciting. I love it. So that'll be I think that's going to be a great teaching. We have a lot to look forward to. And then we're also going to continue on, news permitting, right? I mean, if we don't have any major news that we need to address or talk about, we'll continue our discussion about witnessing, sharing to Jews. We've talked about a lot already, but there's a lot more to it, and we've got a lot of questions that have come in, and we definitely want to be able to answer those questions. So for those of you that have been answering those questions or asking those questions, hold on to them. We'll give you some great answers, and we'll provide for you as much insight as we possibly can with your questions, okay? So thank you for those, you guys. We'll support you. Olivier, you have anything else to say before we wrap it up?
Well, I'm doing this. I've decided to do this every week now. It's what time is it? It's 11:23 for the next hour. Okay. Anybody who goes to my newantisemitism.com and orders my End Times Anti-Semitism book, I put the other one in for free, which is a $10 value for the next 1 hour. So if you want to go to my site. Go sign up, subscribe on YouTube, but get this book, $25 on my newantisemitism.com, and I throw automatically this one for free. It's in the next hour. After that, we're done.
It's going to be the best money you ever spent. I'm just telling you that right now, you guys. And if the book was $75, I would pay for the book. I kid you not, I would, because Olivier is insightful and we're supporting him, and we should support him. He is a tremendous blessing. I love him very much. You guys know that. I really care about him. I think that he is God has used him in such a great way. And it's interesting because we don't realize this, but we do find in the Bible indications that the anti-Semitism is going to grow. And the culmination of that anti-Semitism in these last days is the life of the Antichrist, right? The final Antichrist. That's the culmination of it. You're going to learn all about that stuff in this book. And it's really good. And I find myself going through a lot of this going, man, this is really, really good stuff. And on a lot of levels, I kind of am beginning to, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Andy's going to beat me up for saying this, but I don't know if you guys know who Andy Woods is. He's the pastor. I think it's called Sugarland Church in Texas. He's one of our friends, right? I think Andy probably stole a lot of his material from Olivier. At least in recent, so from this book, because a lot of this sounds a lot like Andy, and it's pretty incredible because this is insightful, powerful stuff. And that's a compliment, by the way, because Andy Woods is one of the great ones as well. So get the book, you guys. It's phenomenal. I am proud of the work that Olivier does. And if you get a free book out of it, I think that that's always worthwhile. And some of you might say, well, James, I already have those books. Buy it and give it as a gift to somebody. You know, we do that oftentimes as a church. We're actually I'm thinking about or praying about very soon getting a bunch of these in our hands, maybe 100 or 200 of them, and using them as a giveaway to our in our latest radio show. Maybe the next 4 or 5 episodes of our radio show. We might need a lot more than that. I don't know, but I'm really thinking about that because it's a great opportunity. Okay. So, Olivia, anything else before we wrap up?
No, because if I open my mouth again, we'll talk for another 30 minutes. So no, I think we should wrap it up and let the people go on with their day.
All right, we'll do that. Guys, again, thank you so much. You guys are incredible. We're very, very grateful for the love that you continue to show us, the support, the kind encouraging words that you guys continue to give. Some of these names I don't even know how to pronounce. Booth Biz Players, that's with the Z. Thank you for supporting us during the show. And Jasser65, thank you so much as well. You guys are a blessing. We appreciate the fact that you guys continue to bless us the way you do with the super chats and the stickers. You guys are great. And the greatest way that you can bless us, of course, is through your prayers. We need that more than ever. We need prayer more than ever. My team is finding out that before I do the shows with Olivier, we pray more than any other show that I do because the enemy just hates anything that we do pro-Israel, and he attacks us on every level. So continue your prayers. We love you guys. God bless you. Many of you guys have actually asked me, kind of on a side note, many of you have asked me what this is in the studio here. I'm going to point to it. You guys can see me pointing right to it, this little sign here. That is a sign. I'm going to give a quick shout out to Ezra Quimby. He is the son of my executive pastor. He's my right-hand guy. And Ezra is quite the artist, and he made that for me. It's very, very special. He even looked up some Arabic and wrote in there. Very, very kind. And so those of you that are asking, that's what that whole thing is about. He's a tremendous artist. Maybe one of these days I'll zoom in on it. But anyway, guys, thank you so much. We love you. May God richly bless you. Keep your eyes on him. Keep looking to him. Keep seeking him, because it's all about the fact that, listen, Jesus is coming sooner than you think. So let's not waste time, right? Let's tell people about Jesus. Let's evangelize, especially our Jewish friends. Remember, Jesus tells us to go unto Jerusalem first, then all of Judea, and then we go to Samaria and the uttermost parts of the earth. So that is our call. That is our responsibility. The Jews, with great dedication, have spent tremendous amounts of time preserving the word of God that we get to enjoy today throughout the centuries. Let's bring it back to them as those that are grafted in. Let's bring them the word of God. Let's minister to them. And then let's get out there and preach the gospel to the rest of the world. So, love you guys. God bless you.
Amen.
Until then, shalom.
Shalom.
We love you guys very, very much. Bye-bye.